So, I hear you're drowning in debt because of some futile fertility treatments.
My ex-husband sneered at me as he approached me with a sarcastic smile. This was in a renowned hot spring town. We reunited in the most unexpected place.
It's pathetic how hard you're trying despite it all being in vain.
My ex-husband looked down on me. After our divorce, he remarried and was blessed with children. He was living a contented family life. He considered himself the winner while belittling me. Whose story are you even talking about? I touched my slightly swollen belly. I wonder who really needs fertility treatments. He was about to learn a shocking truth. No matter how much he ranted or clung to me, it was too little, too late. This marked the beginning of my ex-husband's downfall. The false happiness he had acquired through his misunderstandings was crumbling loudly. Those who find happiness, and those who let it slip away. Our reunion clearly marked the diverging paths our lives would take from here on. My name is Mary. I work at a travel agency counter. I propose various plans to customers who visit the store, arranging trips that ensure their satisfaction. I found great fulfillment in this job. I married Mike after a workplace romance. He joined as the new manager at the branch where I worked, always approaching me with a gentle smile and a calm demeanor. During the busy seasons like summer break, we worked late together. During breaks at work, we would engage in enjoyable conversations and encourage each other through tough times, gradually spending more and more time together. Eventually, we became conscious of each other, started dating, and got married. After our marriage, I transferred to another branch.
The travel agency job involves a lot of overtime and is challenging. You've worked hard without a single complaint. Now that we're married, you can take it easy and be a housewife.
His caring words filled me with a deep sense of happiness, appreciating the kindness my husband showed me. However, I was passionate about my work and had dreams I wanted to achieve. For those dreams, I had lived a frugal life and saved money. So, I decided to continue working even after marriage. John respected my decision, and we both worked hard at different branches. We understood each other's jobs and enjoyed our small happiness by comforting each other over drinks every night. 2 years had passed since we got married. We haven't been able to have a baby yet. I started feeling anxious as we hadn't conceived after 2 years. I lost my parents when I was a student. Being an only child, I often felt lonely. That's why I longed for a large family. Therefore, after getting married, while not necessarily desiring a very large family, I did hope to have at least 2 children.
Don't worry, it'll happen eventually.
My husband was receptive to my feeling. He also agreed on having children. I wonder if I'm infertile. Maybe I should see a doctor. I looked down, feeling disheartened.
Don't be so negative. It'll be all right. But if you're worried, it won't hurt to get checked out.
Saying that, my husband gently stroked my head. He always understood me. I felt so moved that I was nearly brought to tears. After that, I went to the OB/GYN and underwent several tests. The multitude of tests revealed no particular abnormalities in my body.
It's good there's nothing wrong.
My husband said that happily upon seeing the test results.
See, I told you there's no need to rush. The baby will come to us eventually.
I wonder how many times I've been saved by my husband's gentle smile. It always made me feel so much lighter. Next up is a test for men. It's a short procedure. So could you possibly go during a break from work? It's likely that my husband also had no issues. But just to be cautious, I wanted him to get tested. Of course, I believed my husband would gladly accept. I was certain of it.
What? Why do I have to get tested? It's usually a woman's issue when it comes to infertility, and it would be a waste of time for me to do it.
His response was unexpected. It might be unnecessary, but just to be sure, if there is an issue on the man's side, there are treatments available. Could you please do it? His expression turned somewhat cloudy. I understood his reluctance to get tested. If a problem was found, it might hurt his pride as a man. It was a delicate issue. I knew it wouldn't be good to force the issue. It doesn't have to be right away, whenever you have time. However, he remained silent. The day ended without me getting an answer from him. One day, we visited my husband's family home. It was my Mill's birthday, and we brought a bouquet and a gift. I heard that my Phil had an affair when my husband was young and disappeared afterward. Afterward, my Mill, on her own, raised my husband and did a commendable job. I heard she went through a lot of struggles. She turned 65 this year and had retired from her job. She worked tirelessly all these years and never neglected her parenting duties. I had great respect for my Mill as a woman. She could now spend her time happily and at ease. That's what I thought. I was certain the bouquet and gift would bring joy. With that confidence, I opened a door to my Mill's house.
Well, welcome.
My Mill greeted us with a bright smile.
Oh, what beautiful flowers, and this, a set of bath salts. You remembered how much I love baths. I'm so happy.
As expected, my Mill was very pleased. It was supposed to be a pleasant time spent together. However, she then said, I'm happy with the gifts and flowers, but I'm starting to wish to be able to see the face of a grandchild. Her words changed the atmosphere instantly. I was at a loss for words and glanced at my husband. But he remained silent.
Mary, I understand work is busy, but there are things more important than work. You have to face your health properly and focus on child making. There's always fertility treatment available now.
I had already faced my health issues. I had also undergone the tests. There were no problems found.
I just want to hold a cute baby in these arms soon. Mary, I'm counting on you.
My Mill was also the same. Why is infertility always presumed to be a woman's issue? Why doesn't she say anything to my husband? Yes. I couldn't argue. I was afraid that arguing would create a rift between my Mill and me. I wanted my husband to explain it properly, but he remained silent the whole time. It felt as though everyone assumed the reason we couldn't have children was entirely my fault.
I'm hoping you'll have a baby in your belly by my next birthday.
Those words weighed heavily on me. Setting a deadline only made me feel more anxious. I tried to tell myself not to worry, but her words echoed in my mind. I couldn't remember anything about the conversation that followed. As the evening came, we left my Mill's home. On our way back, we walked shoulder to shoulder in silence. Our long shadows were cast by the setting sun. I kept looking at those shadows. My husband's shadow marched straight ahead. What was he thinking? How did he take his mother's words today? I wanted to ask but couldn't bring myself to do it. No, I was afraid to ask about it. I was scared of feeling despair from my husband's words again. We returned home without speaking.
I'm starving. Let's have dinner quickly.
He said that, acting as if nothing had happened. He probably planned to end the day without addressing my feelings. I decided to speak up boldly. Hey, John, about what your mom said today. He turned to me with his usual smile.
What about it?
Was that smile just for show? She said she wanted grandchildren. I looked straight at him.
Yo, but if it's not happening, we just have to wait, right?
No, that's not what I wanted to say. She told me to think about my body over work and to undergo fertility treatments. But I have faced the issue and got tested, and there were no problems found. His expression slowly changed. Why didn't you say anything at the time? It feels like it's all my fault. But it's not me who isn't facing the issue. It's you, John, isn't it? I didn't intend to say it like that. But once I started, the words just wouldn't stop. All my pent-up frustration erupted.
What the hell? Always about the tests. I've told you, infertility is a woman's issue. And what mom said wasn't wrong. It's not my fault.
He got angry, his face turning red. He wasn't the husband I knew. I know it's not your fault, John. It's wrong to blame anyone for infertility. But I just want to move forward. To do that, we need to start with the tests, whether it's for treatment or not. No matter how much we argued, we couldn't accept each other's viewpoints, and it remained a stalemate.
This is too much hassle. I'm hungry. I'm going out to eat.
With those words, my husband left the house. I was left alone in the quiet room. Suddenly, I felt all the strength drain from my body, and I slumped onto the sofa. The image of my husband yelling kept flashing back in my mind. Was it my fault? I didn't mean to upset my gentle husband. This wasn't what I intended. I just wanted him to understand. I wanted us to work together towards our future. The testing was for that purpose. I couldn't stop my tears. In the quiet room, only the sound of my sobbing echoed. The next morning, my husband returned home in silence. You said you were going out to eat. Where did you spend the night? I was worried. He didn't seem to listen to me.
It doesn't matter.
That was all he said before leaving for work. It was our first major fight. These things happen. I hoped he would be in a better mood by evening. Thinking this, I too headed to work. I kept sighing all morning. However, my husband's mood didn't improve for days. He started leaving home earlier and coming back later than before. On weekends, he would go out without a word and return when I was asleep. The time we spent together as a couple had drastically reduced. It felt like he was avoiding me. I no longer knew how to interact with him. Eventually, this silent coexistence became our new normal. I couldn't even remember the times when we cherished being together. What had driven us to this point? Was suggesting the test really so wrong? And finally, my husband stopped coming home. You've been away a lot recently. Where do you stay? He had started to have conversations with his back turned to me.
I'm busy with work and always miss the last train, so I stay at a business hotel near my office.
Likewise, he kept his back to me. I see. Then he headed to the bedroom. At some point, my bed had become the couch. It's just a ridiculous excuse to say that work ran late and you missed the last train. It wasn't our busy season. He was hiding something. My suspicion turned into reality weeks later. My husband comes home every few days, dumping a huge pile of laundry on me. Then he packs his freshly washed underwear and clothes in his bag and hurries out. You could do your own laundry. It's not that much trouble. I muttered as I loaded his laundry into the washing machine. At that moment, something dropped with a clink. I looked at the floor but found nothing. However, I was sure I had heard something. I searched again, more carefully this time. What could have fallen? Stepping back, something sparkled at my feet. Here it is. What is this? I picked up the shining object and held it in my hand. Oh. I was at a loss for words. What sparkled in the palm of my hand was a small earring. My mind went blank for a moment, but I wasn't as shocked as I thought I would be. By the time he stopped coming home, it was clear to anyone. My husband was having an affair. Somewhere in my heart, I harbored those suspicions. But I was afraid to confront the truth and tried to dismiss it. I didn't want to hurt myself. However, I was now confronted with reality. I wouldn't run away anymore. I decided to have an honest conversation with my husband. With evidence of his infidelity in hand, it was time to end our marriage. The next day, I headed to a detective agency. A few days later, my husband's affair was confirmed. The other woman was a new employee at the branch where my husband worked. She joined the company around the time when cracks began to appear in our marriage, a young and attractive staff member. My husband, with his characteristic gentle tone and charming smile, captivated her. He got closer to her by acting as her mentor and eventually started a relationship. It was new to me, but apparently, my husband had made advances toward various female employees before. As a supervisor, he used sweet words to get close to them and deepen their relationships. It was his cunning method. I was just one of the women caught in his trap. The reason he chose me as a marriage partner must have been because I was particularly convenient for him. I felt a surge of resentment. It was time to end this life. I was determined. That night, as usual, my husband came home with a load of laundry. You don't have to come home just to do laundry. Why not have it done at her place? I spoke to his back. He stopped and turned around.
What are you talking about? I told you, it's work.
He looked at me with a cold gaze. Then is this part of your job too? What exactly are you teaching this female employee after work? I presented him with several photos. They showed the two of them leaving the workplace and entering the apartment where she lived alone.
What is this?
He seemed unable to hide his shock. Don't play dumb. I've investigated everything. And this earring, wasn't she looking for it? It was caught in your shirt. He froze, looking at the earring in my hand.
I never thought you could be such a person with terrible habits towards women. Let's end this. Now you can openly date this woman.
I said this and handed him the divorce papers. A silent atmosphere filled the room. My husband stared at the divorce papers with a look of surprise on his face. Suddenly, he burst into laughter.
What's this? Sour grapes. Are you bitter just because you can't have kids? If you've got time to take pictures like this, why not diligently pursue treatment to get pregnant?
What an appalling thing to say. Who's really being bitter here? I struggled to contain my rising anger.
Divorce. I've been wanting that too. The other woman is pregnant. I've been eager to cut ties with you and move on. I only care about my new family now.
What a reckless man to get the other woman pregnant. I was speechless. That was how our divorce was concluded. A swift and unceremonious end. John took only the bare essentials with him when he left. I decided to move out of the apartment we shared. After canceling the lease, I began packing up. Everything he left behind went straight into trash bags. I had no regrets whatsoever. Just then, the doorbell rang. Who could it be at a time like this? I slowly opened the door. Outside the door stood a man. His hair was unkempt, and he was wearing dirty clothes. He was a stranger I had never seen before. He then greeted me sincerely and began to speak. I was astounded by the man's words. Then, 3 years passed. I continued to live frugally after the divorce, and finally, my savings reached the target amount. I had made my dream come true. Then, I resigned from the travel agency. One day, I was walking through a hot spring town. This is one of the most famous hot spring towns in the USA. The outdoor bath store was popular, and people happily strolled through the town, visiting various hot spring facilities. Recently, new sweet shops and cafes have opened, becoming popular among young people. I love this vibrant hot spring town and have moved nearby. Enjoying a stroll in the pleasant weather, I suddenly heard a familiar voice call my name from behind. Who could it be? I was shocked and lost for words at the sight that met my eyes when I turned around. It was my ex-husband, whom I had parted ways with 3 years ago.
Didn't think we'd run into each other here. On a solo hot spring trip. How miserable.
My ex-husband was wearing work clothes. He was sporting a stubbly beard, and his hair was unkempt. I wondered if he had quit the travel agency. I never imagined we would meet here. My pleasant walk was completely spoiled.
So, I hear you're drowning in debt because of those futile fertility treatments.
John approached me with a sarcastic grin.
All that effort for nothing. How sad.
He scoffed, clearly looking down on me. He probably wanted to show off to me that he had children with his new wife and was living happily. He seemed to think of himself as the winner and looked down on me. Who are you talking about? I gave John a cold stare.
I heard from the landlord of our old apartment. You've gotten yourself into debt, haven't you? After I left, some guy you borrowed money from came to collect money. You went into debt for expensive fertility treatments and ended up with nothing but a huge debt, right?
The man he referred to was the one who visited while I was cleaning the apartment after our divorce. Debt? You're mistaken. Well, sometimes it's better to live in blissful ignorance. I then shared the truth to my ex-husband, whose expression clouded over slightly. It was a shocking truth for him. 3 years ago, after my divorce from my ex-husband, a man indeed visited as I was clearing out the room for moving. The man was not there for debt collection. He was actually my ex-husband's father. It was the father whom I had been told disappeared with an affair partner. He had come looking for my ex-husband. The father seemed to have learned from someone about the apartment where my ex-husband was living his married life. However, by then we had divorced and the apartment lease had been canceled. The name tags and mailbox labels had been removed, so his father didn't know which unit was John's. He had mentioned John's last name to the landlord, saying he wanted to meet because he had lent him money. The landlord, fearing the man was a debt collector, immediately contacted me. Upon receiving the message about the visitor from the landlord, I simply said, "Let him in. I'll meet him." The landlord loved to gossip, and I was afraid of any strange rumors spreading. It turned out the landlord, believing the father to be a debt collector, likely shared this amusing tale with John upon a chance encounter. John took it seriously. The reason my ex-husband's father visited the room was to request a loan. He had been abandoned by his affair partner and was struggling financially. Thus, he managed to find out my ex-husband's whereabouts and came to borrow money. Unaware of the divorce, the father approached me with his utmost sincerity. However, to me, a divorced woman, this was entirely irrelevant. This man was no relative or concern of mine. I directed him to rely on my ex-husband instead, giving him John's contact information. With that, he left. Hearing this, my ex-husband became furious, his face turning bright red with anger.
You gave him my contact. Since then, I've been hassled with support inquiries.
In the hot spring town filled with cheerful laughter, my ex-husband's angry voice stood out.
Why should I have to support him? He left me and my mother. It's too much for him to show up now expecting help.
It's understandable that my ex-husband would be angry. It was entirely his father's selfishness. However, I had no sympathy for that situation.
Then my wife said she couldn't deal with such a troublesome Phil and talked about getting a divorce.
That sounded unfortunate.
But for the sake of our unborn child, I convinced her to give our marriage another chance, and by helping with her family's cleaning business, we managed to settle things.
I looked at the logo on my ex-husband's work clothes. It seemed that his wife's family was in the cleaning business, judging by the company name written there. John had given up his position as a travel agency branch manager to work daily at Hot Spring Inns as a cleaner. His income from the cleaning job was entirely managed by his wife, leaving him with no disposable money. His wife, aware of his wandering eye, likely wanted him under her parents' watchful eyes by making him quit the travel agency job. I was impressed by his young yet capable wife. You have a strong wife, but it's rare for a wife to restrict her husband so much. Is there another reason? John suddenly went quiet, turning pale.
What? Are you hiding something else?
I had nothing to hide. However, there was just one thing that intrigued me. I wonder if the child really is yours. I said that while gently touching my slightly swollen belly. My ex-husband froze as he looked at my belly. It was as if time had stopped just for him. In fact, I was pregnant. As the tests confirmed, there was nothing wrong with me. After the divorce, I led a life far beyond what my ex-husband could have imagined. That life was sheer happiness. As I said this, I attempted to enter the luxury inn in front of me. Then my ex-husband called out, "Wait, please listen to me." But I felt no obligation to hear him out any further. "We didn't ask for your cleaning services, so don't come inside." He looked at me, bewildered.
What do you mean we? Who are you to this inn?
I didn't need to continue the conversation, but I decided to leave him with one final remark. I own this inn. His face turned pale once again. My parents adored this hot spring town. When I was young, our family often stayed at a small inn in this hot spring town. That inn, filled with our memories, became very old and neglected, overshadowed by the newer, larger inns surrounding it. Eventually, it faced financial difficulties and nearly closed. My dream was to purchase and revive this inn. I saved most of my earnings from the travel agency, and with frugality, I reached my savings goal. I bought the inn with my inheritance and savings, renovated it, and reopened it. Using my experience from the travel agency, I created a welcoming place for everyone, young and old, men and women alike. The reputation of the inn spread rapidly. The inn quickly gained an excellent reputation and now ranks among luxury establishments, with my net worth reaching approximately $130 million. Particularly well received at the inn was the food. Menus were carefully crafted for each guest, with meals provided accordingly. Many guests returned specifically for the dining experience. The dishes reflected the dedication of the chef, who spared no effort in catering to the guests. I empathized with the chef's caring nature, and we were drawn to each other. And so, I had a remarriage by getting married with him. Shortly after our marriage, I became pregnant. I no longer had any conversation with my ex-husband. I turned my back on him.
Please, wait.
He probably only wanted to stop me for money. To me, my ex-husband was then a stranger. I owe him nothing. I have nothing more to say to you. Never appear before me again. I said that dismissively and entered the inn. Nevertheless, he tried to follow me into the inn, but was stopped by the staff and expelled outside. His voice calling my name faded away and eventually disappeared. Our unexpected reunion marked a turning point in our respective lives. Weeks later, I received a letter at the inn addressed to me. I was surprised when I saw the sender's name. It was my ex-husband. I thought everything had ended between us. Curious and slightly anxious, I opened the envelope. The sheet of stationery was filled with dense writing, bearing distinctive quirks, and mistakably written by my ex-husband. The letter contained astonishing information. The content was as follows. During our reunion, John began to wonder if the cause of infertility lay with himself, and he asked his wife if he truly was the father of their child. Although she initially insisted it was his, he had long felt a dissonance due to the child's lack of resemblance to him. Therefore, after repeatedly questioning his wife, she finally confessed. The child he thought was his own was actually from her previous relationship with another man during her student days. After graduating from college and joining a travel agency, the wife quickly caught my ex-husband's eye, and they started having an affair. But for her, it was just a fling. Her real commitment was to a boyfriend from her student days. She got pregnant with this boyfriend's child and considered marriage, but he disappeared upon learning of her pregnancy. Being a recent graduate and unexpectedly finding out about the impending parenthood, she likely felt anxious and overwhelmed by the responsibility at such a young age. Facing the prospect of becoming an unwed mother, she lied that the child was my ex-husband's, marrying him for financial stability. However, After learning that my ex-husband's father had abandoned his family for an affair, she saw parallels with her own past of being abandoned by her own boyfriend. To rein in her promiscuous ex-husband, she resorted to threatening divorce, which succeeded in getting his attention. She forced him to work under her parents' supervision, controlling his salary, and leaving him without any spending money. Tired of this constrained life, my ex-husband spiraled into madness. Constant arguments with his wife became routine, leading him to choose divorce. However, his in-laws opposed it. Even so, my ex-husband, who chose divorce, swiftly left his wife's side as if fleeing. Consequently, he was left with very little money. Now he wanders from one budget hotel to another. Due to not owning a suit and having poor personal grooming, he struggles to find employment even though he endeavors to search for one. It seems he relies on daily temp jobs, earning just enough to cover his daily meals. He wishes he could go back to the old days again. That's what was written in the letter. I thought to myself, don't mock me by saying you want to get back together with me. While I felt pity for his plight, it was the path he chose. He was marred by infertility issues, infidelity, and disdain towards me at our reunion. He always acted selfishly, never considering my feelings. I am no longer the person I was back then. I have a bright future ahead with my new husband and our soon-to-arrive baby. I instructed my lawyer to issue a restraining order if he ever tried to contact me or appear before me again. And then, I tore up his letter. I'll give birth next month. I do feel both the joy of meeting my baby and the anxiety of my first childbirth. But with the encouragement of my kind husband, I'm getting through each day. He always cares about my health and helps with the chores on weekends. So with him by my side, I'm definitely okay. Today is my husband's day off. Walking through the spa down together, we feel the changing seasons, and afterwards, we soak our feet in a foot bath and take a deep breath. That's our favorite walking route. Oh, the baby just kicked, I exclaimed, and my husband quickly placed his hand on my belly. He then softly spoke to our unborn child. This happiness is not something to be taken for granted. That's why I think we should cherish it. And so, I took another deep breath of the air in this town, surrounded by the beautiful nature.